Charlie Kirk, the shadow of society. When a bullet silenced Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University, America gasped in horror. But Carl Jung would ask a deeper question: what darkness inside us made this possible? Pause. Slow down. Political violence does not begin with one lone individual. It erupts from a fragmented collective field of energy, from fear unspoken, from wounds unhealed, from shadows denied for too long. And until we dare to face that shadow, the cycle will repeat. But if we choose integration, if we find the courage to see what is hidden, then the very place of fracture could become the seed of peace. The Shadow Archetype. Carl Jung once warned, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the conscious life, the blacker and the denser it is. The shadow is not a fairy tale. It is the hidden side of every human being, the impulses we deny, the rage we suppress, the envy we refuse to admit, the hatred we project onto others, because we cannot bear to see it in ourselves. And here is the paradox Jung uncovered. When we turn away from the shadow, it does not disappear. It grows, it thickens, it waits in silence, until the day it bursts into the world. Now, step back and look at society. Every angry headline, every bitter argument, every act of political violence. This is not random. This is the collective shadow speaking. When entire nations repress their darkness, when groups deny their wounds, the shadow gathers into a force of its own, a possession of the collective mind. And when that possession takes hold, reason collapses. Humanity fragments. Violence becomes almost inevitable. Charlie Kirk's death is not only the tragedy of one man, it is the eruption of a collective shadow, a symptom of fractures buried deep, a sign that the energy of a divided people has turned against itself. Because political violence does not begin with one lone individual. It emerges from a field of fragmented energy, from mistrust, from fear, from the refusal to face what lives inside us all. But Jung never left us in despair. He taught that the shadow, though terrifying, is not only destruction, it is also invitation, the doorway to healing. For what is suppressed can be brought into light. What is rejected can be reconciled, and what seems like darkness can lead us back toward wholeness. Projection, the enemy within. Jung revealed a dangerous mechanism of the psyche. He called it projection. What we cannot face inside ourselves, we hurl outward. We paint it on another person. We make them carry our darkness so we can pretend we are clean. Think of how easy it is to see cruelty in someone else while denying the cruelty within, to condemn another's arrogance while ignoring our own hunger for power. This is projection at work. And when individuals do this, it is painful. But when entire societies project together, it is catastrophic. Enemies are born not because they truly are monsters, but because we need them to be. We need them to hold our shadow. We need them to wear the mask of everything we refuse to see in ourselves. Jung warned, the more a society represses its inner truth, the more violently it will seek scapegoats, the other side, the enemy within, the figure onto whom we can pour all our rage and fear. And this is why political violence feels inevitable, because when projection grips the collective mind, a rival is no longer a human being. He is the embodiment of evil. He is the shadow itself. And if he is the shadow, then destroying him feels like salvation. But here lies the tragedy. The bullet never kills the shadow. It only strengthens it. Every act of violence creates new wounds, new repression, new shadows waiting to erupt again. Charlie Kirk's death in this light is not only the silencing of a voice, it is the mirror of a society consumed by its own projections, each side gazing at the other and seeing not fellow citizens, but the dark reflection of what they cannot bear to face within. And Jung would whisper, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The Trap of polarization. Polarization is the perfect breeding ground for the shadow. When a society fractures into two hostile camps, projection multiplies. Every wound, every resentment, every fear gets hurled across the divide, and each side becomes convinced we are light, they are darkness. Jung called this state collective possession, a kind of mass hypnosis where people no longer act as individuals, but as fragments of a divided whole. Reason dissolves, dialogue collapses. The other side becomes not a neighbor, but an enemy, not human, but demonic. Look around today. Doesn't it feel like each camp lives in its own sealed universe? One side projecting its fears onto the other side doing exactly the same. A mirror game of shadows, endlessly reflecting rage back and forth, and in that hall of mirrors, truth disappears. All that remains is the raw intensity of us versus them. But Jung warned of the cost. When societies polarize, violence is never far behind. Because when you are convinced the other is evil itself, then striking them down feels like justice. It feels righteous, even holy. This is the trap of polarization. It seduces us with the illusion of purity while dragging us deeper into darkness. It promises clarity, but delivers chaos. Charlie Kirk's death is a brutal reminder. It shows what happens when projection collides with polarization, when we no longer see the human being, only the shadow our side needs to destroy. But Jung also believed that every shadow hides its opposite, that in the very place where society fractures lies the possibility of renewal. If only we can resist the seduction of polarity and reclaim the humanity we keep projecting onto our enemies. Violence as a symptom, not the disease. Violence is never the root. It is the surface eruption, the fever that signals a deeper illness. Jung would say, a shooting, a riot, a political assassination. These are not the true disease. They are symptoms. They are the psyche of a people, crying out. What is the deeper wound? It is the disowned shadow, the rage never spoken, the grief never mourned, the fear never faced. When these forces are repressed, they don't dissolve. They sink into the collective unconscious. They wait. They accumulate pressure until they break through in acts of shocking violence. Charlie Kirk's death, then, is not just the story of a gunman. It is the story of a society unable to integrate its pain. A nation that tries to banish darkness, only to be haunted by it in more violent forms. And here is the paradox Jung uncovered. The more we try to deny the shadow, the more it erupts as fate. The bullet is not random. It is the consequence of wounds left untended, of projections left unexamined, of divisions left to rot. So what is the path forward? Not repression, not vengeance, but integration. To recognize violence not only as crime, but as mirror. A mirror of what the collective refuses to face. A mirror of the work still undone. Jung would insist, only when we listen to the symptom, only when we dare to read the meaning of violence can we begin to heal the collective body. The path of integration. Jung did not believe the shadow must destroy us. He believed the shadow can transform us. Integration. This was his word. Not the erasure of darkness, but the reconciliation of opposites. What does integration mean for a society? It means daring to look at the wounds we would rather deny, to bring grief, fear, rage out of the unconscious into the light of dialogue. It means no longer projecting all evil onto the other side, but asking instead, what part of this anger lives in me? What part of this hatred belongs to us all? Integration does not excuse violence. It does not glorify chaos, but it refuses to waste tragedy. It takes the eruption of the shadow as a call to responsibility, a chance to awaken, to face what we have long buried. Imagine for a moment if every act of violence became a mirror, not for vengeance but for reflection. If instead of hardening into blame, we softened into inquiry. What does this say about us? What do we still need to heal? Jung believed that when a society owns its shadow, something miraculous happens. The energy once bound in repression becomes fuel for creativity. Conflict becomes dialogue, division becomes depth, and the collective shadow becomes a teacher of wholeness. Charlie Kirk's death is a tragedy, but it could also be a threshold, a moment to ask, will we continue projecting our darkness onto each other? Or will we finally dare to integrate the shadow and build a society not ruled by fear, but guided by the wisdom of wholeness? The death of Charlie Kirk shocks us. It wounds a nation, it ignites fear and fury. But Jung would whisper, this is not the end of the story, because what erupts in darkness can also awaken the light. Every shadow is an invitation, every tragedy is a mirror. The question is not only why did this happen? The deeper question is, what will we do with the shadow it reveals? Will we keep projecting, keep dividing, keep feeding the cycle of fear? Or will we dare to integrate, to face the darkness together, to step onto the narrow path where fear becomes understanding and division becomes depth? If Jung was right, the future of society does not depend on destroying our enemies. It depends on facing our own shadow. Only then can peace be more than a dream. Only then can a fragmented energy field become whole again. Now I turn to you. Do you believe integration is possible? Can a wounded society learn to face its shadow before it destroys us all? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If Jung's vision resonates with you, subscribe for more explorations into the depths of the psyche, and share this message so that more people can hear the quiet wisdom beneath the noise of violence.